Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Amanda Peterson on the podcast. She's a fellow Minnesotan, even though she lives in Wisconsin now. I mean, she lives on the border, but she was born and raised in Minnesota, so she is a fellow Minnesotan, which I'm glad that I get to have more of them on now. I've been trying to contact some of them, but yeah, she's on to share her health and fitness journey and, what got her into bodybuilding. And just talk all things health and fitness. Amanda, thank you so much for coming on.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, the first question that I always ask everyone is, what's the weather like? But since you're living so close to me, I don't even have to ask that question, which is great. I mean, we live in the upper Midwest. It's cold. That's just what we're going to say. Winter's coming. This is the time where you pack the 5 to 10 pounds of winter weight and just sit by a fireplace, for 8 hours out of the day, basically. So we'll just skip that part right now. But Amanda, just to get started off, why don't you just give us your backstory on what really inspired and motivated you to become a bodybuilder?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always been, athletic just from sports in high school. I played volleyball. I once was a basketball player. That wasn't a long career. But track and fitness. So it's like I've always been in the weight room doing that type of thing. And so I graduated and I still, kept up in the gym, but there were a few girls around here that had competed, and like I really was like super green to bodybuilding. Like I really had I had no idea like what bodybuilding was about. And I saw these girls around here, like locally, competing. I was like, that is so freaking cool. I thought like the process of like what you can do through like your own discipline, through training, diet, like mentally, all that stuff. I'm like, that's so damn cool. So I looked into it a little bit more. So the gym that I go to right now is Midwest Health and Fitness in Hudson. And I originally just went there just to like, get a membership because it's a dope gym. Like there's graffiti on the walls, music. It's not like your geriatric home Snap Fitness. No offense to anyone who goes to Snap Fitness. But so I just went there and I was like, yeah, I've always thought about doing a show. The owner, Chris, preps, bikini clients. And he's like, well, the fact that you're already thinking about doing a show, he's like, you're gonna do one. And I was like, okay, sign me up. So I just like fell in love with the process, and like I've never really had a strict diet before like that. So right away, like seeing those results was so like addicting and motivating, and like I said, it's like it's you versus you in this bodybuilding industry. It's like you do all the work. You can't like tell anyone like, oh, you did that for me, or they can't tell you that. So that's like what I just like truly loved about this sport when I like first got into it. So
was there any concern that you had about bodybuilding before you got into it? Because, I mean, the general public has so many misconceptions about the sport where, like, if I were to even quiz somebody, like, on a 10 questionnaire on what bodybuilding is, I'd be surprised if they got, like, 2 or 3 answers right.
Right. So that's another thing. I was so green to this sport. I knew that obviously you can't look like that year round. I didn't know the long-term really health consequences at the time. But like I said, like it was my first show. I was in bikini. I was a natural athlete. So that alone right there, like obviously helps in a sense, being a natural athlete in this sport. But I mean, I had a great coach, honestly, where it's like I trusted him and I knew he wouldn't, just like completely wreck me, where I feel like there's a lot of really bad, scary, sketchy coaches out there. So that in itself too, like being new to this sport, like that's my biggest thing for anyone is like find a good coach, because longevity in this sport will make or break you. Like a coach will absolutely make or break you. So
yeah, and for every good coach, there's about 10 bad coaches. So that's why finding a good coach is by far one of the most important things you could do. But we talked about this briefly before we started recording here, and I know it's going to be a great answer because, one of the myths and misconceptions that I love to bust every single podcast, it's gotten better the last 5 years, but especially with women, walking into the gym, if they look at one dumbbell kind of funny, that all of a sudden they're just going to gain, 50 pounds of muscle overnight, which
I know.
Dear God, I pray that happens to me one of these days. But did you ever have that fear when you're getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, I know that you hear this all the time, and I bet, you have to deal with that. But how do you like to respond to that whenever you hear that? Basically, like almost every day, probably.
Honestly, okay, so when I first started, like I never had that fear. I wanted that. I was like, I want to get freaking strong. Like I want round cap shoulders. Like I want big legs. Like I wanted to be strong because it's like you're lifting for a reason. But at the same time, like I told you earlier, it really like as a bodybuilder, it almost makes me mad when females are like, I don't want to get too bulky. And I'm like, if you do a 5-pound dumbbell fly for 10 reps, like, you're not gonna get shoulders like Big Ramy on the Olympia stage. Getting muscle and getting big is hard. Like, you need to eat a lot. You need to train hard and heavy. Like, it just doesn't happen if you look at a dumbbell or do, one extra rep. Like, it just doesn't work that way.
And if it does, give me your phone number and all, you'll
Absolutely.
yeah.
I'll give you guys all the
Oh,
tips and tricks.
oh my God,
Yeah.
yeah, like literally, yeah, like you'll be my favorite person on the planet. Then yeah, so I'm still patiently waiting for that one person that just looks at it. I'm waiting, and then that's my great white buffalo. That if I find it, that's that then I'm basically done podcasting. I'll just be like, okay, I'm just gonna hang out with this person then for the rest of my life because
Taking that to the grave.
yeah, they have found the secret. But I mean, nutrition is such an important aspect of this sport, and it is so undervalued from the outside public because most people just assume that, oh, you just work out a lot and stuff, and you go up on stage and you pose. But that nutrition side, what were some of the big nutritional changes that you made when you first started to take this seriously?
Oh man. When I first started my competitions back in what 2018, obviously cutting out alcohol. That was the biggest difference in my life.
Especially being in Wisconsin, I mean, good God, that's got to be the hardest thing ever.
That's what I'm saying. But yeah, it's just like you don't realize how much you're actually eating or under eating until you start like counting calories or you get a meal plan or um like those types of things where it's like if I tell someone go weigh one serving size of peanut butter and your jaw's gonna drop. So it's little things like that that definitely like open my eyes a ton, and I think that the general public isn't aware of is that how much they're overeating or how much they're under eating.
No, and that's one thing that shocked me as well when I first did it because I had that weird metabolism where literally I could scarf down like 20 burgers and wouldn't notice anything. But now as my age is, I'm 27 now. As I'm slowly getting older, it's slowly starting to catch up to me. So I got to definitely watch that a little bit more. But this is so much more of a mental journey than it really is a physical journey. And most people don't understand that because they just see the physical transformation, but they don't understand the mental transformation that's taken place. What has this journey been like for you mentally, not just physically? Because I mean, that mental aspect is 1,000 times more impactful, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is. I've definitely had a big shift within like the last year about bodybuilding. So, I just recently did a prep. I hadn't been on stage for 3 years up until this last show. So, of course, I was so excited. I was gung ho. I was like, I freaking love bodybuilding. It's like, it's my passion. It's my life. Found my niche. And I did my show and I did very well. I was super happy. I had a freaking easy prep. It was great. I had a great reverse. But you can become very obsessed and consumed by this sport if you're not self-aware. And this sport is so great and I love it. I love everyone that does this sport. I'll obviously support anyone who does this sport that's in my life. But unless you are like very self-aware, like bodybuilding can quickly consume your identity and as you as a person and can mess up your priorities pretty fast. And so for myself, I was just like, I love this sport, but I'm like, it's just not for me anymore because it's like it was becoming my life and I was like creating this image of me on like social media that I felt like I had to maintain, like the abs and the aesthetics. And it's just like, so I've recently had a switch where it's like, I think I'm gonna be done with bodybuilding and I'm gonna go into like a more like healthy lifestyle where it's like instead of seeing what my body like or like what I can do to my body, I'm gonna see what it can do for me. So I'm super excited to kind of switch. Like obviously it's super great to have like the knowledge on lifting and the food and all that stuff. So it's like bodybuilding did a lot of great positive things for me, but at the same time, like there's a lot of negative aspects to it, like the mental side of it. So you just have to be very aware, I feel like. That's what a lot of people don't understand.
What was that like, sort of mentally giving this up though? Because I mean, that's like a drug addict sort of giving up their drugs. Really, I mean, it's kind of a hard process.
Oh, yeah, it's very hard. Like I don't even know what it was. I had like this weird like come to Jesus moment. I was like, what am I doing? I was like, letting this consume me. So it's like, of course, there's like that little devil on my shoulder where it's like, oh my gosh, if you eat this cookie, like you're gonna gain weight, or oh my gosh, if you miss a cardio session, like you're gonna gain weight, or oh my gosh, if you miss a lift, like you're gonna lose your muscle. So it's like there's still that mental aspect where it's like it doesn't go away overnight. Obviously, this is something I've been doing for 3.5 years. This is all I've known for those 3.5 years. But I know in the long run, like, it'll make me so much happier in the aspect. And like I said, longevity. I want to have kids one day. Bodybuilding for a female is extremely rough on your body, whether you're natural or enhanced. It doesn't matter. Like, hormones are hormones, you know? So, and I know because I was competing in the wellness division, and if you guys have seen the wellness girls on the IFBB stage, they're very impressive. Like, it takes a lot of sacrifice, dedication, and let's say enhancements. We'll just go with that.
Yep.
Enhancements to get to that level. And it's like you just really need to figure out your priorities and like think long term rather than I want to get my pro card in a year, because in a year you don't know what that's going to do to you. And then you're going to look back and be like, was it worth it? I don't know, you know?
I refer to enhancements as like Popeye spinach, where you just gotta every once in a while, But yeah, again, it's just that whole sacrifice, and people just do not understand that. So even I didn't really have that clear of an interest in, or I mean that clear of a knowledge in just the sacrifice until I really started this podcast, and then it's just like wow, they go through so much, but I mean getting out of this now, you know. Obviously, what's your mentality been like since you've sort of made that decision? Do you find that things have been easier now? Where I mean, even though it hasn't been that much of a time period, do you find that it's easier now for you mentally to like maybe, hey, I don't need to work out today, or I can maybe skip this, or just just relax a little bit more?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. It's been like a night and day difference ever since I've like truly made that decision rather than, thinking about it. Um Before, like I said, if I had two cookies, I'd be like, "Oh my god, I have check-ins on Friday, like my weight's going to be up point 2." It's just like there's more to life than having shredded abs for me at this point for like the few seconds of IG cloud and whatever likes I get. Um but I've definitely found it to be a lot more like at peace. I just feel like relieved knowing that like I can go out with my friends and have a drink or go to a family event and have dinner with them instead of bringing my Tupperware of chicken and rice, and having them be like, "Well, why aren't you eating?" And I'll be like, "Oh, well, I can't because I'm going to be prepping in a year." So it's little things like that that you definitely took for granted and like missed out on. And like I said, going forward, like I don't want to look back anymore and be like, "Oh, I wish I wasn't doing this so I could have enjoyed it a little bit more with my family or my friends or whatever that may be?"
And that's why I've been asked multiple times, like, Ryan, would you ever date like any of the female bodybuilders? I have enough stress in my life as it is, okay? I can't deal with someone who's like freaking out about having two cookies and thinking that they're gonna get like fat or something like that. Like that for me would just be like, so that's an extra added stress where I was like, no, okay? People do not understand too, like where sometimes people objectify, especially the women in the sport. They don't realize what it would be like to like actually be around them and just deal with all because like it's not all peach and roses this lifestyle. So I just love to point that out to people too. It's like you're seeing the version of them that they want you to see. You aren't seeing really what goes on behind the scenes. So, like, as much with like Instagram as people, try to make out. I mean, just even normal people in general, just try to make out their lives as everything's perfect. It's like, no, actually meet them and hang out with them, and then you'll see that. Oh, yeah, not all is as it seems.
Absolutely not. And that's the one thing too where it's like where I was talking about like it kind of consumes your identity where it's like in my like for me personally, like I was creating this image of me where it was like the aesthetics of like the certain percentage of body fat, the shredded abs, the big wellness legs, and it's just like all that stuff. And I'm just like, what am I doing? I was like, this isn't even me. Like, what the heck? I'm so much more than shredded abs and like booty pumps. Like it's so dumb.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. And when you were competing, though, one of the biggest mental challenges that the competitors go through is that post-show blues because, I mean, you
Oh
are gonna,
yeah.
like you said, you did understand, ahead of time that you weren't gonna be able to look like that 24/7. But I mean, still, even knowing that you aren't gonna do that and actually going through it is a whole different ball game. What was that like for you just during that journey? Because I mean, that for a lot of the comparators that I have on, that is like the biggest thing for them is just learning to accept that fact that like, hey, I am gonna have to put on weight.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say I was absolutely terrified of this reverse through the show because my last show, the ones 3 years ago, I obviously was very new to the sport. Like I had never gone through a reverse. Like I was green to the sport in general. So like reversing, I was like, oh, I'll be fine. I'm sure I'll gain a couple pounds. Like it won't happen to me. Oh my goodness, was I freaking wrong. I had the worst reverse ever, the post show blues, where it's like I just ate everything in sight. And let me tell you what, those pounds are packed on quick. And when you don't reverse, that makes post show blues that much worse because obviously it's inevitable you're going to gain weight. But when you gain that much weight that quickly and it doesn't, pack on evenly, let's say.
Weight can be very discriminatory when it comes to where it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, and so if you don't reverse in itself, like that makes post show that much harder and that much worse. I will say this time around, knowing what post show blues is like, I had a little bit more I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. A little bit more, I don't even know, an idea. Let's
Yeah.
say I had more of an idea on what it's gonna be like. And it did help too, like this time around, like, I had a different coach and he was incredible, right? So he fed me right away. So I wasn't starving or food focused or anything like that. And like I said, I feel like how your prep goes also definitely impacts the way that you reverse. Because if you're starving and you're dead doing an hour of cardio 12 weeks out still, the second that shackles release, you're gonna freaking dive right into all that food. And so I had a pretty easy prep, I didn't start really, really pushing until like, 2 weeks out, I'd say. Um, but knowing that, yeah, I'm gonna gain weight, it's okay, it's not sustainable. And I think also too, the mindset change that I had that I wanted to go more lifestyle, that definitely helped. Um, I before I made that decision, just recently actually, about doing more like lifestyle stuff, I definitely was stressed and like anxious because I was like, "Oh my god, I can't gain too much weight because like I'm competing, in 2 years. So like I have to stay smaller to make the prep easier." And it's just like, why am I stressing something that's so far away? So like there's a lot of different aspects and roles in the way that I think post show blues can affect people. Like I said, the prep itself, who your coach is, like your mindset going into it. If you think you're going to stay shredded, you're going to have a rude awakening. And you're just going to also feel like garbage. And who wants to do that? Not me.
Well, now that you've decided to go more lifestyle, do you plan on never seeing a treadmill ever again?
Oh gosh, no, I still do the stairs, but only 20 minutes, like 2 times a week rather than 45 minutes 6 times a week. And that's the difference between lifestyle and bodybuilding. I do it because like it makes me feel good and I enjoy it, not because I'm punishing myself for eating another cookie or I have to stay this lean year round because a year from now I might be doing a show.
Do you sometimes, because like I found like when I got really serious into just working out and stuff, that after you sort of get into a little bit more of a lifestyle approach to it, do you feel like any, not like regret, but like you sometimes realize that like, wow, I not like wasted this time, but like I occupied so much of my time with something that you know like why did I do that, that you kind of felt like you kind of lost a lot of time? Because that's something that I dealt with too, where I was like, wow, it sort of like left me sort of picking up the pieces after doing it for like 3 4 years, kind of like you.
Right. Um for me, not so much, just because like bodybuilding has taught me so much and it's taught me now to the point where I'm at where it's like I'm satisfied with the career that I had and I'm happy I did that. And I'm kind of happy I went through bodybuilding to realize like who I am, like to stay true to myself rather than chasing the likes on Instagram or the aesthetics or making sure people like see me a certain way. And if I hadn't had that come to Jesus moment about bodybuilding, would I still be that way? Maybe. And knowing how I felt and the pressure that put on me, like I just didn't like it. So bodybuilding definitely, I wouldn't say wasted a lot of time, but it took a lot of time that like I wish I could get back with friends and family. But at the same time, like it did teach me a lot about myself as like a person.
Oh, for like me though, like I did, like I let it consume my life where I didn't even compete, but like I had to like my work schedule had to be affected by it. Like everything, like it was consumed. All the times that I told friends, like, "Oh no, I got to go work out. I can't, go to the bar or something like that." So yeah, that was for a big thing for me. Was like, wow, I kind of wasted like my early 20s, really doing not like wasted, but like wow, I really did something. But hey, as it gets, as more time passes by, you kind of learn to sort of accept it and just be like, hey, it was a period of my time, and it did teach me. It teaches you a hell of a lot of discipline too, and it teaches you that a lot too. And or is there any other thing that other than really just like that mindset, is there anything that you would really say you took from the sport of bodybuilding that you can use in your average everyday life to impact it in a positive way?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, just like the lifting and nutrition part alone. Looking back 3 years ago, if I looked at my form doing a squat, I would run the other way. So that alone, and just like the nutrition aspect of it, where it's like, um, I have so many things, like programmed into my head where it's like a Thomas bagel is 54 grams of carbs and 10 grams of protein. It's kind of a blessing in
Oh,
disguise.
so you're one of those people where it's like I could never go out to eat with you. Basically, where it would just be like you'd have to start like listing off everything, and I'd be like, why? Like why?
No, I used to be that way. I really used to be that way. I was like, oh my God, I'd see my food as like proteins, fats, carbs, but it's like in a sense where now I don't have to, weigh and track all of my food because I can like eyeball and be like, okay, this is about, like 150 grams of egg whites, which is, like 30 grams of protein in the end, whatever it may be. Um, so like I said, there's definitely a lot of things that I took out of it that I still use in my daily life. Like I said, training and nutrition wise specifically. So that alone, like I do appreciate that aspect of it.
And this question is specifically for all of our fellow, Midwesterners or people that live in the northern part of the country. Like we said, winter's coming, and by the time this gets published, like 2 or 3 weeks from now, winter will probably be here. So, what advice do you have for people looking to just keep a healthy and fit lifestyle during winter? Because I mean, I hate those Texas and like California and Florida people who are just like, yeah, I find it so hard when it's like 60 degrees outside to like go out and work out. Where it's like, yeah, come here when it's -20, and sometimes your car literally just freezes solid where the gasoline just does, and you can't even start it. But
It just won't start.
it just won't start. And finally, talking to someone that understands that gives me great pleasure. But what advice do you have for people, especially living up in this neck of the woods, on how to stay healthy during that time period where really all you want to do is just lay by a fire and drink hot chocolate all day?
Yeah. Okay, I absolutely understand that, and especially because it gets dark out literally at, like, 3 o'clock.
Hmm.
It's fine. But my whole thing is too, it's like, when it gets dark out and, like, icky like this, I love doing fasted cardio in the morning. It's kind of fun, like, it just sets your tone for the day, honestly, and, like, you accomplish so much more, like, you're up before, like, the world's up, technically. And that helps a lot, and or going during the day when it's sunny out. Going to the gym at night, even like during the summertime when it's like bright until 9 o'clock out, I hate going to the gym at night. Once I hit that point where it's like 5 o'clock, I'm like, I'm staying home. I'm not doing anything. And I get people's schedules are different, but it's like go during the day when it's light and you're doing stuff and you're active and you're not tired and you have your peak energy and you have all of your food in you rather than you get to the end of the day, you've done all your things and you're tired and you're like, that's the last thing I want to do is go to the gym when it's dark.
Which for me, I'm the during the summertime, my bike rides that I do, it's got to be dark out and it's got to be like past around like 9 o'clock. Because first of all, there won't be mosquitoes out by then. They've gone to bed basically. And second of all, no one's on the track, so you don't have to like stop and say hi to anyone or like BS anything. Where and if someone's on there, I always carry a pocket knife with me just in case. But
There we
hey,
go.
hey,
Just in
but
case.
I live right by a lot of parks, like a lot of like nature parks, so it's perfect for that. But yeah, I'm more of a night owl myself. Where I mean, some of these competitors that I've talked to, they're getting up at the time that I'm going to sleep, especially on weekends, where it's just like I can't do that. That's just a whole different thing to me. But
Have a workout buddy. It sounds so cliche, but like having someone to hold you quote unquote accountable to like go to the gym with and kind of push you, it honestly helps so much. There's days where I don't want to go to the gym. And my friend Jen's like, shut up, we're going to the gym. I was like, you're right. And it ends up being, like the greatest lift because like I have someone accountable, like they're pushing me, etc.
again, just because my personality is a little different, I'm the exact opposite. Where, as you can tell, I'm very like like high energy, like almost like go
Yeah.
go go. The
Yeah.
gym is my one time where I can just like chill out and like not do so like if anyone goes I get pissed where like I'm like just leave me alone, just please, like this is my one time where I can like
I
reflect
have
on
days
things.
like that. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, but that's me like every day though, where it's like if someone were to work, like I'd get impatient, like if they were taking too long on the weights or something like that. Like my college roommate tried to do it with me, and I was like, dude, I like you, but like we're never lifting again. Like that's just me. That's my time to really delouse and kind of de-stress myself from the day. But yeah, having a lifting partner at times, especially like when I'm at a team sport, it's completely different because you're gonna have to be with them anyway. Where I definitely understood that, but yeah, there are just so many things, especially as we get, closer to winter that are just going to become, vastly more important. But I mean, when it comes down to the lifestyle of bodybuilding too, a lot of people do sort of get that, not thinking that like they're better than people or stuff like that, but they think just because of all the hard work that they go through and all the results that they see that like not their self-worth is more. I don't really know how to put this, but like a lot of people do sometimes think that like they might be above other people. Not like you know what I'm saying though, where it's like
I totally get what you're saying. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
so how did you personally deal with that? Because like I even at times too felt that I was not like superior, but like it's like I put in the work and it shows the results. And when you see people that are like maybe out of shape, you're just like, oh, those people just don't. It's hard to explain to people who haven't really experienced it. But like, yeah, you get that mindset where you're not superior, but like you kind of are. That's like how you kind of, yeah.
Right. No, I absolutely get that. For me, I obviously, as a bodybuilder, when you get down to like the X amount of weeks or whatever, like you're showing off your physique, you feel good. Like you
If
feel,
I ever competed on that last week, I would be walking around naked basically the entire time, just posing for everyone. Yeah.
yeah, like you feel like that person, you feel like it in the gym. And I'll say that like absolutely me. Like I don't think I wore a shirt for the last 6 weeks of my freaking show. Um, but also at the same sense, like I like to think I'm a very humble person and a very helpful person. So I've never, looked at someone who, may be out of shape and have been like, oh, like that guy, he needs to try harder, Because it's like everyone's at different aspects and like different journeys. Where it's like me, where I've been weightlifting and doing this for 4 years, I can't compare myself to someone who started 6 months ago. And like that's what I always try to keep in mind, where it's like I don't know how long they've been doing this. Like I don't know if they would ever want to do bodybuilding. They could look at me and be like, "Oh my god, she looks gross. She needs to put on weight." So it's like it's one thing to keep in mind where you're at compared to others and vice versa.
What was your friends and family's opinion when you announced to them that you want to become a bodybuilder, and did it evolve at all over time?
Yeah, it for sure did. So my first show, back in 2018, of course, they were very green to the sport too, because they'd never heard of bodybuilding until me. And they were very supportive. They were very excited for me. They saw me, put in the work. They didn't love how crabby and hungry I was at some points in my journey. Um, but so I wrapped up, my first two shows, and then I did this last show, whatever. And when I had first announced to them that I was doing this show, they were like, "Oh, really? Like, you're doing another show?" I was like, "Sure am."
That
But
Minnesota passive aggressiveness, where they're just like, "Oh, you sure you want to do that? But okay,
yeah,
fine, yeah, go ahead."
it's kind of how it went. Just because like they saw the mental toll my first show put on me, post show blues, and how much I struggled with the yo-yo dieting and up and down and restricting and binging and all that stuff. And they saw how, like obsessive I was and crabby I was. And I will say, like, this past show compared to, my first two, it was much, much different though. Of course there were days, I was a little on edge, but for the most part, it's like I had such an easy prep, just due to like the way that my coach had set me up metabolically, so I didn't have to die and slash calories and up cardio and all that stuff. Um, and so I think they were really scared at first that I was just going to be like this cranky old freaking bee. And,
Just the whole "tell me I'm pretty" bit thing, basically, just like all the time.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like the post show blues, I think they were worried about just because like I did have such a hard time with it last time, but obviously this time it is much better, which I feel like they're very relieved about. But when I told them, I'm probably not going to do another bodybuilding show, I'm doing a lifestyle, transition, they were like ecstatic through the moon, of course, just because it's like they do know how hard it is too on like your body, just not not aside from the mental aspect, but physically, like bodybuilding's not a healthy sport. I don't care who you are. Anyone that doesn't understand bodybuilding, they think it is because they're like, oh, you're eating chicken and rice and you're lifting. But it's like, it's not healthy, you know?
Yeah, once you get to like day 300 of just eating just chicken and stuff, like you tell me how great that feels to you and stuff like that. But
And doing all the cardio and oh,
yeah, well, and I mean, on top of that too, the most important part of bodybuilding and just the lifestyle and just the lifestyle in general is sleep. I mean, anyone that disagrees with me on that, pull an all-nighter and then go and try to work out and tell me how that works for you. I mean, in college, I did that twice, and both times, I almost died. I was just, you're just so dead. But what is your relationship like with sleep? Because even now, doing this as a lifestyle, after some workouts, like people do not understand this phenomenon, but I try to explain to people that there's a point where you can get so tired that you can't sleep. And I know that sounds like an oxymoron kind of people where they're like, wait, how can you be so tired that you can't sleep? It's possible, but how
It's a real thing.
what has your sleep journey been like throughout this whole entire, health and fitness journey of yours?
Yeah, so I will relate back to this last prep because I really don't remember it from my first one because it was so long ago. But this last prep, I was sleeping pretty good up until like the last, I want to say 4 weeks, and that's when we started really pushing. And I had the days where walking was hard. Um, when you're tired and your hormones are whack, like your sleep is so irregular. And I tried using melatonin even, and like I still just was spotty. Yep, there we go, 5 milligrams. It's a real thing. Like your sleep gets super super messed up when your body fat's low, you're hungry, you're all of that. Everything kind of snowballs into one, I would say. And now, ever since I'm digging in the peanut butter jars at midnight, eating some cookies, I'm sleeping great. you know, so sleep definitely is a number one thing. And like I remember too in prep when I wasn't sleeping that good, like just like my recovery wasn't great, where it's like the amount that you're like expending, there's no recovery because you're not sleeping. And sleeping is like the number one tool for recovery and your cortisol levels and all that stuff. And once again, like that just snowballs into the other stuff. So
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, everyone that everyone should admit this, but I've had some people that have denied it. Everyone has those days where you just don't feel like working out. And I've had like 3 people on this podcast have been like, "Oh, that's never happened to me." And I don't call them out because they're guests on my podcast, so I'm
I
being
want to be like
respectful.
your
I'm
liar.
being respectful to them, but deep down I'm like, "You sack. Like, what the hell's wrong with you?" and stuff like that. But like,
I
everyone has those days, and the one thing that I think differentiates or is the biggest contributing factor to people stopping on a health and fitness journey, or either when it comes to weight loss or just becoming healthier, is when they reach those days, they're just like, oh, I don't have to go work out. Then like they don't find that extra added push to keep going with this lifestyle. But how do you do it? Is there any like mechanism or is there any like strategy that you use to you know find that strength inside of you to still go to the gym even when your body and your mind is telling you like no?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely days where I know I absolutely should not go to the gym just because, like, and there's days where it's just like you're tired, but you're like, once I get moving, I'll be fine.
It's like knowing the difference between pain and injury, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there are definitely days where it's like I get to the gym and you know what, I'm fine. Or I get my pre-workout in me and I was like, what was I doing? I was fine. It's just like sometimes like you just got to move and get going. And there are days where I get to the gym and I was like, this is gonna suck. I was like, this is about to be the worst lift ever. But you know what? That discipline kicks in more than the motivation side of things, and it ends up being a great lift. Sometimes you just got to throw on your favorite, playlist and just get it done. And if it ends up not being a good lift, you can still say, you tried anyway. You did it. And that's my mindset where it's like, even if it's a bad lift, it's like you still tried. Don't beat yourself up over it. Tomorrow's a new day. Don't dwell on it because that does nothing except, stress you out. So, and then there is days where it's like, walking's hard. And I'm like, I'm not about to go to the gym because I know it's going to do nothing good for me.
Oh my god. I mean, yeah, that's me. As you can probably tell, I have never taken pre-workout though before because could you imagine what would happen if I took pre-workout? I don't my head would probably explode. So for the safety of the public, I've never drank coffee and I've never taken pre-workout,
Oh,
hey,
I wish
that's
I could say the same thing.
oh my god. But like no, like it's a curse though cuz like I'm one of those people where when I get up, I cannot fall back asleep no matter what. Like I could get like an hour and a half and as soon as I wake up, I'm just like and I've taken like probably a handful of naps my entire life too. I'm one of those people too where my napping is just me laying down and closing my eyes, but not falling asleep. That's a nap.
I really wish I had like a quarter.
No,
Yeah,
no, you don't. No, you don't. Trust me, because then there's times where like, yeah, it's a blessing and a curse. Where it's like, yeah, like, yeah, college was a little bit easier for me because like I could just naturally like function off of like 2 hours of
right.
sleep every once in a while. But but then there's also times where I sleep and the next thing you know, I'm like, wait, a full day went by? Like what?
You're
Like
like,
what?
"Well,
Yeah, like I slept for like 24 hours. Like
I
what's going on
blinked."
here? Yeah, yeah. I blinked and it's gone. It feels yeah. So there's definitely something to that. But one question that I ask all the guests, and it's my favorite one to ask, is if there's one thing that you could change about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Oh man. I would say, oh, that's a good question. There's a lot of things I could change about this sport. I would say just like for one, definitely do your research on the sport because people that are really green going into this sport can get mentally and physically like pretty messed up. And like I said, the longevity of this sport, if you don't do it smart, it's slim to none. And it has very big effects on it, health wise and mentally. As you can see, like a lot of bodybuilders have died within the last, few months here, really big names. Um, so I would say the one thing like I wish I could change about this sport would be like the extremes that people go to get, a top five call out. But that's bodybuilding. It's a very um aggressive sport. It's very what's the word I'm looking for?
Demanding.
Demanding, like so it's hard because it's super cool and fun to look shredded, but behind it your hormones aren't working. Like you don't feel good. Like and that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. They definitely glorify this sport and it's not. It is not a pretty sport. It's hard, it's ruthless. Bodybuilding doesn't care about you at the end of the day. So that would just be like my one thing is like the extremes that you have to go to for this sport.
I compare it to, even though it's not even 1/10 of the same thing as comparison, is like people who like glorify like war or something like that, and then the first time they see Saving Private Ryan, they're like, oh, okay, yeah. It's like, even though obviously combat and bodybuilding are not even in the same realm of things, but it's a similar thing where like, yeah, people glorify it, and then when they see the backstage stuff and everything that goes on behind it, they're just like, oh, that's really what happens behind it and stuff. Yeah.
And it's like when people see me, like eating my chicken, green beans, and 10 almonds, they're like, well, why are you eating that? And I was like, well, I have to. And they're like, well, why? And I'm like, because that's what I have to do and it sucks. And they're like, oh my God, I could never do that. I like food too much. And I was like, yeah, like they don't understand like what goes on behind it and the extremes you do and how hard it like really freaking is.
One of the cringiest section that I'll ever see is the section of like videos that people have of after a show and like they interview like the winners and stuff like that. You can just see the death in their face where they're
Oh,
just
like
like
I
where they're just like
died.
I'm so yeah like I'm so happy, like I am so pleased with my, and like you can just tell like in their mind they're just saying like basically like just kill me now, basically.
Yeah, just give me a burger and get out of my
Yeah.
face.
Like I
Yeah,
feel so bad for those interviewers because like you have to interview them, but like if I was the interviewer, I'd feel so bad where I'm like I don't want to talk to you because I know like deep down you don't care. Like it's yeah.
yeah. I definitely had a pretty significant diet face this last go around where people would see me, even at the gym that I saw like regularly and I have seen regularly. They'd see me a week later and they're like, "Oh my God, your face is so skinny," and I was like, "Yeah, that's the prep face coming."
One of the most shocking things for me, we had a female competitor at my college gym, and I went to go give her a hug to wish her good luck on the last episode. It's like hugging a skeleton, where you're just like, what? Like, yeah, it's
Oh
just
my
like,
God,
yeah,
yeah. There was there was one time, it was so funny. So my first show, when I was like, I'm still a small female when you're prepping. Obviously, I'm not in like figure or physique, but when I was doing bikini and significantly smaller 3 years ago, I was about like 2 weeks out from my show, and my dad hugged me. He's like, not to be weird, but he's like, there's nothing to you anymore. He's like, you are so small. And I was like, I know. And even like these Olympia girls, like you see them in photos, and like they look muscular and like strong and like quote unquote healthy, and like you see them in person, and they're the size of my pinky finger, and you're like, I'm afraid to hug you because I might snap you.
yeah. I'm 6'3", so that's always been a shock for me. Is that most of these competitors are also on the shorter side too. Where it's like I could bounce some of them like a basketball, basically, and then just. Although Andrea Shaw, I mean, good God, I had her on the podcast, and yeah, geez,
She is an impressive female. She is crazy.
that is like. I almost had to get a new camera because she didn't almost fit into the entire screen, and then it's like. How we are the same species is kind of shocking. You're just like, really, we're the same species, really? Like, how is that? How is
I
that
love
possible?
that.
Like looking at
I
her, but
love it.
oh yeah, just like take a picture of Ronnie Coleman next to me and be like, how is this the same like person or whatever? But yeah, I mean, for me with bodybuilding too, I mean, I wish there'd be more stuff up here in like Minnesota that people, because like, I mean, I went to Jefferson, which is a big shows. Did you do the show at Jefferson? That a lot of people get started there at the
Which show was
Bloomington
that?
Jefferson. I forgot. It's like the Minnesota Classic. It's something like that. But there's always a show there, like in the
Okay,
middle of the
so
summer.
Mr. and Mrs.
I
Minnesota.
think so. Yeah.
I think that's what it is. Yeah, I actually just did Minnesota State, which is
Yeah.
at the Ames Center.
Ames Center. Yeah. Which is
Hmm.
that's in Burnsville, right?
Burnsville.
Yeah, which is right next. I drive through it every day
Yep.
going to town. So again, everyone, that's why I love having people that are close by. They can finally understand some references that I make where people from like, my guests from the UK are like, what the hell is this guy talking about? But no, it's first of all, those guests from the UK though, best accents ever. Like I've had every type of British accent you could
Accents are
have.
so fun.
Oh my god! Well, and before I started like with a lot of the bodybuilding, I had the number one sleep specialist on the planet on.
Wow.
He had one of those like Oxford accents where like you felt like you gained 10 IQ points just from talking to him, where like you're like, I just
Absolutely.
feel smarter with like just vitamins and stuff like that, and just like, oh my god. And then I've had a few Aussies on too where that's just a party accent where you're like, come on.
I just wanna like listen to him talk. I was like, I
Oh,
don't even need to say anything to speak. I
I'll
just want
send you the
to
links to my Australian interviews because those are the best. Yeah, where they're just
love
yeah,
it.
like and the best is because I hate the word tone, but when they say it
Mhm.
in Australia, it's like tune,
I
tune
know.
or something like
And
that, and
they
you're
have
like,
like an extra R in
yeah.
every single word, and you're
Hmm.
like, where did that come from?
Oh, and plus we're Minnesotan, so we got that little Minnesotan accent with our O's. Where every time I talk to
Oh,
people, they're like, oh yeah, you're from Minnesota. But my best, I have a boss from at my job now that's from Chicago, so everything sounds like yes, and it's like, oh, we got a big package coming over there and stuff.
oh yeah.
That the most Midwestern accent, but yeah. That's we're getting on a little bit of tangent here, which is again, I am tired from getting off of work, so I can still talk a mile a minute, but yeah, and when we do have you on a year from today, because you're such a great guest, I'd love to have you on a year from now. Where would you like to be at just in your, health and fitness journey? Where would you like to just be at in your life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved?
Yeah, so I just definitely I like to say I'm finding my balance right now, and I think I'm on a pretty good track of it. But I just want to find a balance where there's no one or the other because I'm a very extreme person. I either do one thing or the other. It's either
Wait, a
I'm
bodybuilder is an extreme person? I would have never guessed that.
you could have guessed that. But it's like me, it's like it's all or nothing. So like I'm trying to find, that balance of not being all in on a bodybuilding on a meal plan. Oh my gosh, if I eat this, like I'm gonna gain weight, blah blah blah. But I'm also not just trying to like fall off the wagon and just like not care about, like what I look like or how I feel. Cause it's like I still want to feel good and like be confident and like love my body and see like what it can do for me this time. So like a year from now, like I just want to just be like happy and comfortable in my skin and not have those little devils on my shoulders saying like, "Oh my gosh, if you miss cardio or you need to go do cardio because you had a burger last night." Like things like that where it's like getting that little devil off of my shoulder and just being like truly happy with like my body and like where I'm at and not feeling like I need to prove anything to someone because of where I used to be in the bodybuilding career and like industry.
Yeah, that's great as well. And I mean, it's just yeah. I mean, that's amazing too. And I mean, you also do what's your job? It's like aesthesia. I couldn't even pronounce like it's
I'm an esthetician.
esthetician. Okay, yeah. So you deal with a lot of that. Do you think your experience in bodybuilding has helped you with that? Because I mean, let's be honest, that tan that you put on and all that stuff that goes into the sport, I think you would be natural at that job, just having that bodybuilding experience.
Yeah, so I mean, like bodybuilding in itself is a very like obviously a physical sport. Like the people, like you're going for looks, you're going for aesthetics, the prettiness, like the hair, the show, like the makeup, the tan, the all of it. So being an esthetician, like it definitely does help because like I've been in this career and industry where it kind of molds into one, like the makeup, like the show day makeup and the tan and all that stuff. And like as an esthetician, I do lashes and makeup and waxing and I make people pretty. So like it definitely kind of wraps into one and it does help me, in my career a little bit, being that like, show day makeup and all that stuff. So
What's the worst experience you've had with waxing when it comes to like anyone? Has anyone like freaked out? Because like I always think of that scene from 40-Year-Old Virgin when he's getting waxed for the first time. Has anything like that ever happened to you where people have like literally just like wanted to fight you basically?
yeah, okay, so that's so funny. So at the time I was in school, right? And I was dating someone and I needed a male model for waxing, right? And so I was like, I'm gonna do your chest. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be fine. Waxing's not that bad. Like it's fine. Like there's girls out there that, get the downstairs and I was like, his chest is fine. It's whatever. and I ripped that one strip, and I have never heard someone yell so loud. He was about to throw hands with me, and I was like, I can't just leave it now. Like, you have one strip of hair missing. And he actually made a video of him, like, literally swearing, but like bleeping it out. So it was the funniest thing still to this day in my career. I haven't had anyone though that's like made me like I'm quitting my job.
No, like I would just take a razor then basically, then I'd just be like, yeah, I'm just finishing it this way because yeah, that just does not seem. And how people do it down under is an amazing thing to me. Where I was like, that's the dedication that I just don't understand. That to me is like a bodybuilding esque level of dedication when it comes to like being able to pull through with that
And
because
that's what it is for
because just even thinking about that like
it's rough.
yeah. It,
But not many
yeah.
people do it.
Yeah, it's like when you watch like in like in middle school when they show you like that pregnancy video where like you see like someone giving birth and you're just like, I don't ever want to have kids then or something like that. Yeah, but yeah,
Ruin that for me.
ruin that for me. But hey, that's why I say that's why as great as women are, I do say they are a little bit crazy because who willingly after going through that experience once says, you know what, let's do it again.
Let's do it
So
again.
there's a little bit of psychopathy there, but hey, that's great. It's awesome.
Beauty
But
is pain. It's
yeah,
fine.
beauty's pain. And being a guy, luckily I don't have to experience that as much. But hey, again, Amanda, we cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story with us. And I, look forward to talking to you again and seeing where you're at. And everyone, go and give her a follow on her Instagram page. Buyer beware. You will get inspired to get off that couch and stop eating all those Twinkies. And if your guys are in the Minneapolis area, just let me know. Love to connect with more Minnesotans on here. I'm hate talking to all those people from down south, all the time, just bragging about their great weather, and especially when they do the interviews outside when it's all sunny and warm and stuff like that, where I'm just sitting here just wondering what is life. The only positive here is I never played hockey, but I'm a huge ice skater, so now give it about 3-4 weeks and the rinks will be open back up. So that's my cardio during the winter is going ice skating and stuff like that.
I love it.
Absolutely. So, but again, Amanda, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Of course, thank you for having me. I had so much fun.
I appreciate that. Now, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.